when you're going through a divorce, it's a very difficult time for us personally. There can be a lot of fighting. My divorce went on nearly 6 years to get to the end of all the difficulties. And at that time, when you're going through a really difficult, life-changing trauma, if you like, you have to then step up and figure out how to be a single parent at the same time. And that is the biggest challenge, I think, that you face initially when you go through a breakup. But your children don't need you to save them. They need to watch you save yourself. So yes, be vulnerable with your children, but don't tell them your deepest, darkest depression. Save that for the girlfriends or counselors, whatever. So I think the challenge of trying to keep your mindset in a good place and still turn up for your children in the way that they need you to is.
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Before we start the next conversation, I want to invite you to check out my amazing book, The Gift Inside, a powerful guide for healing your body, mind, and soul. Reclaim your strengths and awaken your true potential. Whether you are navigating heartbreak or simply seeking deeper fulfillment, this book offers the tools to turn your struggles into triumphs. It is time to unlock the gift within you. Available now on Amazon, or you can check it out on my website, www.irinashehovtsov.com. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Ange Allen Burns. She is the dynamic voice behind the Amazon #1 best-selling book, Do I Really Hate Men?, the transformative podcast of the same name, and the innovative Reclaim Her Power coaching program. A seasoned life and divorce coach and mother, Ange is on a global mission to guide women through a relationship pain, helping them rebuild, thrive, and inspire a brighter future for their children. With over 25 years of experience in the corporate world and 2 decades as a qualified life coach, Ange blends humor, emotional intelligence, and hard-won wisdom to empower women everywhere. Her work is not only changing lives, it's igniting a movement. Welcome, Ange. It is a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me to come on the show.
Yeah, thank you. So please share with us, how did you become a single parent?
Okay, wow. How long have we got? So I have actually been a single parent twice in my lifetime. So I first became a single parent when my first son was just 4 months old. And that was pretty tough. I was obviously, I was working full time. The relationship that I had broke down very, very early. In fact, it almost broke down when I was pregnant. But 4 months in, I don't know. I think a lot of women feel like this. They feel, they feel as though you really need to try to do everything that you can to be with the father of your child, especially with your first child. So I felt a great responsibility that I had to try to figure out how I could make this broken relationship work, really. But 4 months after my elder son was born, it became very apparent that wasn't going to happen. So I became a single parent with a young baby, and I was working full time, and it was a really difficult time. That went on for about 2.5 years, and then I met my husband. We had another beautiful boy. We had a beautiful boy together, and I was married for 7 years. But I think that relationship was breaking down sort of 2 years before we split up. And it really took me a couple of years. And I know I speak to a lot of women. It tends to be, I think it's 77% of women that leave a relationship or leave a marriage. But they don't do it lightly. They spend a lot of time considering it and trying to figure things out. But I spent a couple of years trying to figure out, do I break my family up? Because that is a huge weight on your shoulders to make that decision. But again, got to that point where it was absolutely necessary. And then I've been a single mother for 14 years now, and I've, seen my boys grow. They're 19 and 23 now, so they're not children. So I've had in total 16 years as a single parent. I was working it out actually earlier today that there's only been 3 years of 3 years from sort of 2 to 5 of the years of a child that I haven't actually been a single parent. So I've done the teenage bit, I've done the toddlers bit, I've done the baby bit. So yeah, I'm very, very passionate about single parents and the gift of being a single parent, because yes, it has its challenges, but it can also be a great gift as well.
Awesome. I love that. What has been the greatest gift of being a single parent?
Oh, so there are many, but I think the single one greatest gift that I have found through being a single parent for such a long time is the closeness that I have with my boys, because they've had all of me, and they haven't had to share me with anyone else. I haven't really had a very significant relationship in the last 14 years, and because of that, I mean, certainly in the early days, I was looking for a replacement dad for my children. That's what I wanted. Actually, you don't need to have that. You can do it alone. But yeah, I suppose the closeness that we have, I'm very, very close to my boys. Don't think I would have that closeness if I had had a significant other, or if I'd have gone on to, live with somebody else and do all of that. I mean, that's just been my journey. Some people do go on, they marry again, and they live very happily. I've never done that. It's just not been my journey. I would like to have a relationship in my life at some point, but it has to be the right one, and it has to be at the right time, and good with that. And that really is quite freeing, to have that, to not have that desperate need to be with somebody because that's what society thinks that you should do. So yeah, it is great. I mean, we've had some fantastic holidays together. I'm a massive advocate of as a single parent, taking your children on holiday, just you and your children. And I know so many single parents try to avoid this, or they'll arrange for a friend to come, or go with family members, but we've had some of our best times when we've had holidays together. And when I first started doing that, you would get some funny looks. People sort of look at you and look around and think, well, where's her husband? Table for three instead of, no, it's not a table for three, please. And then the waiter would give you a strange look like, okay. But I think as the years have gone on, more and more single parents are now taking their children away alone, without, and it is so empowering to do that. I remember the very first time that I did it, I turned up at the airport and I was terrified. I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to even get them on the plane? Because it's hard work, isn't it? You have to be super organized. But after that holiday, I just felt like I could achieve anything. I felt like Superwoman. And we've had many, many holidays since then. So, you get a lot of strength, and you get that closeness and that bond to your children being a single parent, definitely.
You're so right. And I also have an airport experience. My son was, I think, 6 months old, and my daughter was 5.5. I was all alone. I had a stroller, a car seat, a suitcase.
Yes.
We had like a baby carrier where the little one was in here, and I had to drag on the car seat and the stroller. And when the ladies, where you go through that checkpoint with the metal detector, when they saw that I was alone, they even I had like a water bottle. They even let me go with water. They didn't ask me to. And
wow.
Let me go so fast through that whole experience. Nobody was holding on, like, okay, we gotta help her out. And you're right, it was so incredible. I think I love traveling. I think in travel we explore new places, and it gives us a perspective, a fresh look, and a way out from, let's say, you have that routine of daily thing that you do. It's kind of a breath of fresh air when you can get out and do something else.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It is just an amazing experience. And, I see so many comments in various Facebook groups that I'm in, and, from people who are a new single parent and quite desperate, like, how do you do it? How do you get through it? And my heart goes out for them, because I've certainly been there, in those moments where you think, gosh, I've got this to do by myself now. How am I going to do this? How am I going to, because you have to earn the money, you have to look after the children, you have to put the bins out, you have to fix things in the house, you have to do everything. But you just do it because you have to. And one of my favorite sayings is, women are like tea bags. You don't know how strong they are until you put them in hot water. And that is very, very true. I love that saying. It's one of my favorites. It's very, very true. And I say to people that are in that position, it will get better. You will figure it out. And people can be very kind and help you. I've had a lot of help from people, like you say, in the airport. People will come to your aid and help you. So it's really nice when that happens.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges you faced being a single parent?
I suppose the challenge is that you feel, everything is on your shoulders, and that can actually weigh you down, and you have to figure out a way of managing that. Um, because if you don't manage that, and you get weighed down, and you get down and depressed, you have to figure out how this new part of your life is going to be. And one of the things that I say to people is, try to reframe it. I mean, and I did this in my darkest moments, when the kids are driving you mad, and you're not getting things done, and you're getting frustrated. I used to think about before, uh, when I was married, and how difficult those 2 years was. And and now, you don't have anybody to answer to. If your husband, wouldn't say help you. I know a lot of people in relationships with their husband, the children, and they feel like a single mum because they do it all. And actually, when you're a single mum, you don't have anybody to get frustrated at. You just do it yourself. So that frustration just goes out of the window. So I would think about those type of scenarios, and think about some of my friends who complain that their husband doesn't do this, that, and the other. You don't have that to worry about. So that, reframing whatever situation that you're in, I think as a single parent, it's really important to manage your mindset, because you cannot show a broken side of you to your children. Now, I do advocate that you need to be honest with them, because what I do is I specialize in helping people to get through divorce. And when you're going through a divorce, it's a very difficult time for us personally. There can be a lot of fighting. My divorce went on nearly 6 years to get to the end of all the difficulties. And at that time, when you're going through a really difficult, life-changing trauma, if you like, you have to then step up and figure out how to be a single parent at the same time. And that is the biggest challenge, I think, that you face initially when you go through a breakup. But your children don't need you to save them. They need to watch you save yourself. So yes, be vulnerable with your children, but don't tell them your deepest, darkest depression. Save that for the girlfriends or counselors, whatever. So I think the challenge of trying to keep your mindset in a good place and still turn up for your children in the way that they need you to is probably the first biggest challenge that you would face when you go through divorce. I help people to navigate that period in their life, to get to a good place, and really to work on their future, and to work on what their future looks like. Because when a marriage breaks down, what you thought your future was going to look like, all of that just changes. It just disappears overnight. So you have to figure that out. So I help people to do that. And I help people to do that and be strong with that, and to manage those negative thoughts that come in, because they are going to come in. They happen all the time. We all have negative thoughts every day. but when you're going through a divorce, they're like on steroids, aren't they? Negativity, it's like on steroids. And another one of great sayings that I love is that, when you worrying about things is like walking around with an umbrella just waiting for it to rain. But when you go into fear is a worry on steroids, if you like, and you can get stuck in that position when you are going through the trauma of divorce. So it's really important that you work on yourself, and that you try to, through that period, be the best single parent that you can be. And it's absolutely possible.
Yeah, you're so right. What was the catalyst in your journey? Who helped you along? Was it a book, a coach, a friend? What helped you in your journey that now that you're doing this work, amazing work for helping others?
So the reason why I do this now is because I made a lot of mistakes when I got divorced. And by divorce, like I said, it was nearly 6 years. 6 years. It went on a long time. And through that time, I put everything into my work, because obviously I needed to make money, and I threw everything into my children because they were super important. I didn't want them to be adversely affected by what was happening. But the one thing that I didn't do is I didn't focus on me, and I didn't prioritize myself, and even though, I trained as a life coach 20 years ago, over 20 years ago now. So even though I knew a lot of all the principles of life coaching and how to make your life better, I didn't actually use it at that point, because I was just so stuck in all the madness and all the hurt and all the pain and all the frustration, and that just took over. So it got to a point where, I just didn't recognize myself, and I knew that I had to start to prioritize me. So I think one of the things that, gosh, this sounds big-headed, but makes me good about what I do is I've been there, and I've been to the darkest places, and I've made the mistakes, and I'm just so passionate about helping people not to make the same mistakes that I did. So very early on in the process, you have to prioritize yourself. People talk about self-care all the time, and it's a little bit overused now, really, self-care, and self-care, I have a different name for it. When you're going through divorce, I call it restorative care, because it's not a negotiable. It's absolutely essential that you restore yourself and you work on yourself to get you to a good point. So I've forgotten what your original question now. I've gone off on a tangent again. Yeah, I think what was the question about?
What helped you when you were going through your own divorce?
Yes. So yes, right. Thank you for getting me back on track. Yes. So I made all of these mistakes. But then when I didn't recognize myself, I knew that I had to do some work. And luckily, because of my training, and because I've had a massive interest in self-development and working on your life, which life coaching is, working on a better life, finding your purpose. I started to do the work, and I started doing lots of other learning as well about mindset, and I got myself to a great place. I really did. And it just became, I started to document everything that I'd done. It became a great passion of mine, really. And I think when you have those breakthroughs, because at the worst point of my divorce, I was suicidal for a short period. And that is a real wake-up call, especially when you've got children. And that's how bad it got. But I worked on myself, got myself to a great place, and then just became really passionate about giving people going through divorce and people recovering from divorce, because sometimes you can still be recovering from a divorce 5 years later, sometimes 10 years later, and you haven't been able to move on. So it doesn't matter if people come to me 10 years after they've been divorced. If they're stuck and they don't know how to move on with their life, I can still help them with that. So that's what I share. And I think, I'm a big advocate of counselling. So I did use counselling when I got to that really bad stage. So counselling, I think, is the first step. I think if you're feeling in a really depressive state, go to counselling, because you can't think about how your life can improve if you're in that state. So I always advocate anybody going through divorce, get yourself a counsellor, even if you don't feel that you need one. Then once you've done that work, you're ready to work on the future. So I used, the turning point for me was really that wake up point of, actually, I know all of this stuff. I need to do it do it to me. And then I've had some great friends, great mentors who have helped. But at the end of the day, you have to do the work yourself. I say to people that come to me, I can help you, I can give you the tools, I can ask the right questions, but you need to do the work. And if you're not prepared to do that work, then you're not going to move forward. It's all about moving forward with really small steps. Because the big things, like maybe, the moving house, the finding a new relationship, or, whatever, the big things are just too big to deal with initially. So I always get people to start with the really small things, and start having some wins and start progressing and start moving forward, start to feel like you are moving forward, and things are improving. And then once you start that and do that every week and build some really great habits, then the bigger issues become a lot easier to deal with.
Yes, I love that. You are so right. It all comes down to the little habits that we do. It could be inconsequential, but then they add to bigger things and allow you the ability to do better, bigger things without having any adverse effect. And you also write that it does take time. It doesn't happen overnight. But the important part is, like you say, it's taking action. You could be the best guide, and we have a lot of information out there, and it always comes down to transformation and taking action and making a decision that you want to change. Some people don't want to change. They just want to keep on going.
Yeah.
I love the work that you're doing. That's incredible. Is there a book you can recommend that inspired your own journey?
Oh my goodness. Many books, really. I mean, I'm a really great lover of sort of like the earlier books of self-development, going back to Napoleon Hill, who was really the forefather of self-development. People like John Rowan, who had absolutely, it's very, very old, but the teachings are just as relevant today. I actually did a Anthony Robbins 3-day event in London, and that was a great turning point. And then books, there's a fantastic book called The Art of Being Brilliant, which is just all about how to make yourself happy, which is just gives, I really love books that just give really little simple nuggets of advice that you just have a light bulb moment and think, that makes sense, and I can do that quite easily. So yeah, many books have inspired me over the years. I don't actually read anything other than personal development books, I have to say. I don't read fiction. I just have this sort of thirst for personal development, and then really, as I said before, I started to document what I did and document what happened in the divorce. That then became a book that was released last year. So I have a book out called Do I Really Hate Men, which is the same name as my podcast, Do I Really Hate Men? And the book really is, I didn't want to write just a boring book about divorce, because there are a lot of really boring books about divorce out there. I don't know if you've ever read any, but I've started them and never finished them. I wanted to write a book that gave hope to people, and that gave people the tools and the techniques and things that I'd used alongside my story. So it's my story so that you can associate with me, that I've been there, you read it and think, wow, yes, that's happening to me. I understand that. But sprinkled throughout the book as well, there's lots of life coaching techniques and the tools and techniques that you need to find your beautiful life after divorce, because there is a beautiful life after divorce, and there is a beautiful life being a single parent. Even though single parenting is tough, parenting is tough, isn't it? I always say that parenting is the toughest job you'll ever love. And it's very, very true, because it is a tough job, whether or not you're in a relationship or a marriage or you're doing it alone. It is a very tough job. And controlling how you feel through that, and controlling your mindset, and not putting too much pressure on ourselves, because we do put such a lot of pressure on ourselves, don't we? Especially as a single mum, we think, right, okay, I've got to do it all now, and I've got to have the house clean, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and actually we can become quite regimented. But sometimes we have to just let our standards slip a little bit, because especially if that's a good thing for our mental health, don't try to be perfect, and don't try to be somebody else. Just be yourself. If you see another mum at the school gate who looks to have it all together and is living this great, it's probably not true. If you see people on social media, having holidays with partners and they look like they've got a great family life, and I'm here alone with my children, you don't know what's happening in their relationship. So, don't look to outside influences, just focus on yourself. And don't be too hard on yourself. I say, don't sweat the small stuff. And I have a really great story behind that, because it was my stepmom, actually, my dad's partner, who sadly isn't with us anymore. And boys were quite small, and I was going over to visit her one Sunday, and you know what it's like getting out of the house sometimes with two boys. Boys can be very boisterous, and I was super stressed, and got in the car, went to meet her in this cafe, and the boys were just like, being boys. And I think she could see the stress on my face, and I was trying to get them to sit down and be quiet. And she just, in her older wise wisdom, she just took my hand, and she said quietly to me, she said, Angela, don't sweat the small stuff. They're boys, they're not going to sit down quietly. Calm down. Let's have a cup of coffee and let's have a chat. And you know what? She was absolutely right, because I was worrying about them, not sitting in a chair when there's so many other things to worry about. So sometimes you just have to just lower your standards a little bit. And I don't mean let them get away with things. I'll just come on. Sorry, I've not stopped talking for a while, but I'll just come on to tell you that one of the things that I'm really passionate about is, with single parents, people tend to think, we get quite a bad reputation. People tend to think that as a single parent, discipline goes out of the house, and it is so not true, because we have to discipline. People think and say that single parents are not able to discipline their children, that they're running riots around the house. That really makes me crazy when I hear things like that, because it just gives single parents a really bad reputation. We have to discipline, because otherwise, we don't have somebody to say, oh, wait till your dad gets home, I'm going to tell him this, that, and the other. We just have to do the discipline, and we do. So it's very, very important to make sure that we do discipline, and that our children understand our boundaries as well.
Yeah, thank you. You're so right. Yeah, and it takes, I love how you say, like, don't sweat the small stuff, because in the end of the day, is it really that important? It is like, because you're trying to handle so many things at the same time, but in the end of the day, in the end of your life, is this little like quarrel or this little thing, was it even worth arguing over? It's not.
Absolutely.
So taking it easy, I think, is important. I think we forget how to be how to be like kids. We take life so seriously. We take everything like so seriously. And I think we gotta step back a little and have fun a little, and not be so like in it all the time.
Yeah, and I think social media hasn't helped with all of that, because we tend to think that we need to have this perfect life, whatever that perfect life is. But everybody's different. We all have different different passions, different ways of working, different ways of parenting. There's gosh, how many parenting books would you be able to find on Amazon? Many, 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 thousands and thousands of parenting books. You could, and there's so much different advice out there. And there's so much conflicting advice. So you just have to, figure out a way that works for you and works for your children. And actually, it doesn't matter what's happening on social media. It doesn't matter what your friends are doing. It doesn't matter, where other people are able to take their children on holiday and you're not because you're a single mum. And I remember when I was going through my divorce, one of the counselling sessions that I had, and I was, as you can imagine, with such a long divorce, the finances at that time were very, very difficult. And I was obviously concerned about this. But what concerned me the most, we found out in this counselling session, was that I couldn't afford to take my children on holiday that year because as a married couple, we'd have great holidays and we'd always go abroad on holiday. And we had these great holidays. Although I'd done that for a couple of years because I had the finances as a single parent, I just couldn't afford to do it anymore because I didn't know how much this divorce was going to cost me. And I didn't know where I was going to live and all of these, big things that you have to deal with. And I, through very clever questioning from this counsellor, she found out that I was just distraught because I felt like I'd let my children down because I can't give them a great holiday this year. And in that session, basically, we got to a point where I decided to buy a tent. I could afford to buy a tent, and I gave the boys these amazing camping experiences. And actually, camping became, even when we could afford to go on holiday, it still became a great thing that we did together. And it was such a gift. So there's always a way, there's always a way through, and we beat ourselves up. So as women in general, we beat ourselves up so much. But as a single parent, you can feel terrible because you can't do this for your children, you can't do that, you can't afford this for your children. But actually, if you look at the problem that you're facing and try to look at it differently, which is what I do with people when we're brainstorming a problem, we try to see it differently and then we push for answers. And sometimes I ask people to have that question in their head for about a week and see what comes up. See what opportunities come up. And it's really amazing that, when you ponder a difficulty or you ponder an issue that you're having, things just happen and things come to you, with that counsellor, then we figured out a way that I could give the boys a fantastic holiday and they loved it. So there's definitely things that you can do, Part of what I'm saying here is that you have to be kind to yourself. And that sounds really easy, doesn't it? Let's just be kind to ourselves. But we are very, very rarely kind to ourselves all of the time. In fact, most of the time we are unkind to ourselves, or we speak to ourselves very unkindly. And that is really bad for us. So if you have a negative thought or you feel like you're not good enough or you're not doing something, just try to change that around and think, right, okay, I'm not going to say that to myself. What would kindness do in this situation? If I was being kind to myself, or if I was advising a friend in this situation, what would I say to a friend? Because we certainly wouldn't talk to our friends the way that we talk to ourselves. Otherwise, we'd have no friends. All sorts of things that you can do, simple things that you can do to improve your situation, improve the way that you think about your situation, no matter what situation you're in.
Thank you. Yes, you're so right. We could be our worst judge, or we could be our best cheerleader, and we have the choice to decide which one we're going to be. And nobody's coming to save you, and you gotta be your own cheerleader first and foremost. And like you said, be kind, be patient with yourself, do appreciate who you are and where you are coming from, and all the things that you already have at your resources. And very good point that you gotta be kind.
And I think if what was I going to say? It went in my head and it's gone out again. I think when we are, it's amazing how things can just happen, and we tend to look at people, like people might listen to me now thinking, wow, she's got it all sorted out. But I actually have days where, I'm doubting, I'm not kind to myself, and you think, you're trying different things and maybe it's not working. Nobody is perfect. Nobody has a perfect life. And just because I've managed to do what I've done and because of the work that I do, it doesn't mean to say that I don't still have my struggles. And I just want to tell you a little story because this happened to me last week. And it was a real, it was a real sort of like light bulb moment, really, because I was struggling a little bit um, with affirmations and sort of the way that I talk to myself. I had an early meeting one day last week, and we had terrible weather over here in the UK, and it was really cold. And it actually, I wasn't the only person on the meeting, but I promised the people that I was going to go. And I laid in bed, and this is awful to admit, but I laid in bed and I really didn't want to get up. Excuse me, this early for this meeting. And I thought, oh, how can I get out of this meeting? Because we all have days like that, don't we? And um, and I remember laying in bed thinking, well, the weather's really bad. I can make my excuses and say, I took the dog for a walk and I had a fall and sorry I couldn't make the meeting. Isn't that awful? I was thinking about a lie. I was thinking about what lie can I say that is going to be a good enough excuse, and I'm not proud of this, that's going to be a good enough excuse to get out of this meeting. And that's what I thought to myself. Anyway, a little bit later, I got up and I said that to myself. And I went to take the dog for a walk, and I had a fall when I took the dog for a walk. I was walking back with the dog and I fell flat on my back. And I remember being laid on the ice, thinking, "Oh my goodness, I have just manifested a fall." Because I said that to myself, and it was a real reminder to me that the words that we say to each other and to ourselves and the things that we think about, you can manifest in your life. And that happened so quickly within a couple of hours that it was quite a beautiful experience actually, for that to happen. But yeah, words are very, very powerful, and I will not be coming up with any lies like that in the future, that's for sure.
You're right, because our mind is always listening to what's coming out of our mouth, and our mind doesn't
Absolutely.
know if something is good or bad. It just takes everything as is, literally. Whatever you say, that's what you're gonna get. That's what you wanted. And the mind always wants
Absolutely.
to prove us right, so it will bring experiences, people, and situations into our life to show you that, yeah, here you go. Here's the proof. Just like
And
you
I
asked.
just needed a reminder of that lesson, and I suffered for it for 2 days with backache and bruises. So it was a good lesson. It was a good reminder.
Yes. What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
So I think I think one of the best things that you can give your children is to allow them to be themselves, to allow them to follow their passions and their dreams, and to allow that to happen naturally. Yes, it's nice to be able to, push them in a certain way if they're not sure what to do. But I think first and foremost, to allow them to be themselves. And, children learn everything from us. So if we can be a great a great person in their lives. So when how do children learn how to talk? Well, they listen to us talking. How do they learn how to walk? They watch us walking, and those are great, fantastic moments when our children are small. But what we tend to forget is that, all through our children being children, even up to adults, they're looking to us to be an example, and they are learning from us. So if, for example, you go through a difficult divorce, but you come out the other side really strong, then you're teaching your children that actually it's possible to overcome adversity. And that's why I believe that sometimes it's important to be vulnerable with our children, because if we're vulnerable and we tell them what's going on, say if you're having a bad day, you don't want to tell your children that you're deeply depressed, but say, actually, mummy's not in a great place just now, but let's go out this afternoon and I'm going to work on it. and and then you do work on it, and then you have a great time with your children in the afternoon, and they see that you have taken yourself from a place of not being in a great headspace to actually being able to have fun and play with them. And just doing that, it teaches your children to have a strong mindset. So all of those great things that you do for yourself when you're working on yourself, your children will then mirror that. And I think that those things are the greatest things that you can give your children. Because unfortunately, we don't teach this stuff in schools. We don't teach you how to have a positive mindset. We don't teach you how to deal with the negativity. We don't teach children how to be kind to ourselves as well as other people. We don't teach people how to discover what their core values are and, what are the things that they really need to do each day to be the best version of themselves. And we don't teach children how to overcome any limiting beliefs that they have, to prove to them that they can do anything they set their mind to. And I don't understand why we don't do that. People tend to come to it later on in life. And if we could include that with our children's learning as they go through life, then wow, wouldn't the place be a better place? It really would. So I think if you can give those things to your children, that's the greatest gift that you can give them.
I love it. Yes, you're so right. We spend 12 years of our life in learning things we're never going to use, basically.
Yes. Absolutely, yes.
Once you live that kind of, and another thing is in school, they teach you conformity, they teach you to follow rules, but once you finish school, they expect you to go out and do something outside of the box, to be curious, to be innovative, to have ideas. Meanwhile, all their school years, the ideas were suppressed.
It's
and
very true.
Not dealing with emotions, not dealing with real stuff, or like how to make money. They spent 12 years of life learning all the stuff, and then when they finish, like they have to find a job, they have to do this, and they have no idea how to do that, and because they weren't yet. So I love that. That I think, education needs to change, and those things on emotions and positive mindset and core values, I think, is so key. And the core values could change, not dramatically, but I think if we start early teaching about them, they will become more of a mainstream, and you would feel more about who you are. There are less likely of a chance that you lose yourself, because when you know what your core values are and then you introduce them into your day-to-day living, you will feel more alive. You will feel more, you will have a purpose, like why you are here, and you're not going to feel so disconnected. So I love all that. Thank you. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
Oh, goodness. No, I mean, as you can see, I am, excuse me, I am super passionate about single parenthood, and love your podcast, Single Parent Stories. And, I think it's a great medium to share the, how great being a single parent can be. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. So it's been amazing to actually excuse me, come on here and share, my single parent journey and my passion for single parenthood. And and if anybody is out there that that finds themselves in a difficult relationship, wondering whether or not they can go it alone, because it's a big decision. I can say to you that I meet very, very few people who, a few years after the divorce, have regret that, because usually people go on to have amazing lives, and they do things that they would never have done when they were married. Now, I don't advocate leaving a marriage easily, because I think you should try to make it work. If you can have couples counselling, do all of that. But actually, if you've really tried and you were still unhappy, and if your children may be unhappy while you're in that marriage as well, let's not forget that, then then I really do believe that you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your children to take that step and fight for a better life. And it will seem like a bit of a fight, if you're lucky, not much of a fight, but it could be, a couple of years of turbulence. But actually, you will all come out of it the other side. And that's when you can really start living again, because the rest of your life is a long time. Even if you're 60 years old, the rest of your life could be a long time. So, I'm just a big advocate of, you know, a lot of people say that, I'll just say this one thing, final thing that's really important. A lot of people say that children, who are of divorced parents come from a broken home. And I don't agree with that at all, because for me, a broken home is a home where you have two parents that are fighting constantly, and that's not a great place to raise children. If you then, you decide to leave, you become a single parent, and you can create the home that you want to have for your children, and that's very empowering. So yeah, I don't believe that children are from broken homes. Children can have two very good, stable homes. And children are very they're I can't think of the word, but they're very adaptable, in these situations, and they will adapt. And it might be difficult for them for a while, but they will adapt. But there is a beautiful life to be found after divorce. And there's a beautiful life to be found as a single parent, which I'm sure many of your listeners are single parents and will know this. And I would say, if you're a single parent listening to this and you're struggling, then maybe buy my book. That might be a good thing to do. But have a look out there. If you're struggling, try to focus on you. Try to focus on making small, positive steps in your life, and just start there. If you can only do one positive thing in a day, do that, and then do two, and then do three. So that's probably a long way round of saying the extra bits I probably wanted to say to your listeners today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You bring very, very good points. If people would like to connect with you, where would they go?
Okay, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Ange Allen Burns. I am also on LinkedIn. You can catch me there. I'm also on TikTok at Ange Allen Burns. I do have my book, which is on Amazon, and people can email me at ange@doireallyhatemen.com. And if somebody would like to have a chat about your particular situation, whether or not some of my work can help you with your situation, then I have a Calendly invite that I can send out if people would like to do that. That's no problem. And I do speak to people from all over, so UK, US, Australia, and all the bits in between.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll include everything in episode notes. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for the work that you are doing. And it takes courage, it takes perseverance to deciding to change and make a better life for yourself. But in the end of the day, hope is never lost. We can always recover. We can always find a better way. And thank you so much for the work that you are doing.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Thank you for saying that, Irina. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.